about the first time I ever got scammed. I'm trying to remember my age. I think I was 9. So I was friends with a bunch of other kids in the neighborhood. I know, a weird concept. Anyway, these kids were a bit older than me. You know, most of them were like in middle school. One of the boys, I'd say he was about 12, was going around the neighborhood trying to sell some of his items. He was encouraging the other kids to buy from him or to trade something better. I wanted to be a part of this, so I asked if I could sell him anything. He said, "Oh, you have a skateboard, right?" This was a skateboard that I had begged my mom to buy me. He was like, "Oh, if you give me your skateboard, I'll give you some money for it." I was like, "Really?" I run inside, grab my skateboard. My mom was like, "What are you doing with that?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go do something. I'll be right back." I was so stupid. Kid grabs a skateboard. He's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool." And I'm like, "So how much are you gonna give me for it?" I'm Latina, we don't have allowances. I've never had actual money before. He goes, "Oh, I have to go back to my house. I'll get the money and I'll bring it back to you." So he takes the skateboard, leaves, and I'm standing there for a good half hour. I was expecting $10, maybe 5. You will not believe what this kid came back with. The first time that I ever got scammed. So this kid left and said he'd be right back with the money. I was standing on the street corner, waiting for this kid. I was starting to get nervous. So much time was passing by, and my mom was waiting for me. I was nervous because I needed to prove to her that I did not just give away my skateboard for no reason. That this kid was actually going to give me enough money for it. She was going to be proud of me. I don't know. I had no idea where this kid lived, but I start walking down the street in the way that he left so that maybe I could see him. I walk for a while and I finally see him walking down the street. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I go up to him and I'm like, "Hey, do you have the money?" Starts the sentence with, "So here's the thing." He begins to tell me that he actually doesn't have the money right now. That'll pay me later. But in the meantime, here's a baseball that his dad told him is going to be worth something someday. I take it from him and I go home and I start to cry. I walk through the door and my mom's like, "Where's your skateboard?" I try to explain to her, I'm like, "This is actually a baseball and it's going to be worth something someday." I never see that kid again and my mom was furious with me.
So when I was in the 4th grade, I had a science fair where I had to come up with a new invention, and I came up with the greatest idea of all time. I thought it was incredibly innovative new technology, and I called it Brownie CC's, aka Brownie Cupcakes. Now, the day of the science fair, I showed up to school without my Brownie CC's because my mom didn't have enough ingredients to make them fresh for the class, which is what I wanted. And so my teacher screamed at me and sent me to a 2nd grade classroom to do work all day, and I cried because the rest of the 4th grade got to just have fun and celebrate the science fair. And when I got home, my mom gave me money to get Pokemon cards, which made me feel a little better. Now, my family is very well versed on this little childhood trauma of mine, especially Savannah. Like, I would literally start off the story like randomly and be like, 4th grade science fair project, and she'll roll her eyes at me and be like, "Oh my god, I know, Mom, Brownie CC's." Well, I was going through her backpack one day when she was in like the 4th or 5th grade herself, and I saw that she stole my invention for her project. I saw the paper, it said Brownie CC's, and I look at her and I'm like, "What is this, Savannah?" And she's like,
Okay, story time. Rewind a few years. I have a history of miscarriages, very difficult pregnancies, so I was on birth control. The week that I enrolled my youngest daughter in kindergarten, I found out I was pregnant again. I was totally and completely in shock. I did not see this coming. So I went to the doctor to make sure everything was okay, give him my history, and she gave me the okay to tell my kids. So I sent my kids down to tell them, and my youngest daughter didn't seem surprised at all. She was just like, "Oh, I know." And I'm like, "How do you know? Like, what do you mean you know?" And she's like, "I prayed for a baby." And it was just so matter of fact, like, I prayed for a baby. God gave me a baby. What are you so surprised about right now? And we kind of laughed it off and went on about life. Well, fast forward a couple years and we were in a store and she asked for something and I said no. She stood up in the buggy, put her hand on her hip and said, "If you don't buy it for me, I'm praying for another baby."
I have a funny story that I couldn't share for a while just because I want to let stuff like calm down. A lot of you know I have 2 kids. Griffin, he's 5, and Nova, who is 4, and recently we've been calling Nova Kova. This happened a long time ago, and I didn't want any sympathy posts, so I just wanted it to like die down before I said anything. I'm talking like months. Miss Nova Bean brought COVID into my family. She was with her dad and she tested positive, and when she came back to me, she comes running up to me and she was like, "Mom," gave me a huge hug and like tackled me, and she was like, "I have the COVID," and kissed me on the lips. Instantly, I was like, "Kova, keep your COVID-covered kisses." It was the first thing that fell out of my mouth. I was thinking COVID, it came out Kova. It all worked out. My family barely was even sick. Like, we were really blessed in that sense. Like, it was kind of nothing for us. Like, thank God. Nova being Nova, when everyone else was like testing positive for it, she was like, "No, I have the COVID. You don't. It's mine." She kept calling it the COVID.
I swear to God, young people nowadays have no chill. Absolutely none. So I was out today and had to nip into Superdrug for some bits and bobs. Had my mum with me. Anyway, there's a massive mob of like 14-year-old kids. I get to the end of the aisle and they're on the other side of the shop. And I just hear, "Have you got TikTok?" I was ready to be jumped. I turn down the aisle and they go, "Yeah, have you?" And I'm like, "Yeah. Did you do the American things?" I was like, "Yeah." Yeah, I did. Why? One of them just goes, yeah, I've got you on TikTok. I was like, thank you.